I think hell has officially frozen over because I am consistently agreeing with Rand Paul. But I don't really want to phrase it that way because Rand Paul is now just consistently agreeing with common sense. And that is that Donald Trump has lost his mind. He has become the #1 Republican speaking out against not only Donald Trump's tariffs, but his big, beautiful bill. And it just culminated in one of the biggest Trump freakouts we have seen with him threatening Rand Paul, which has instantly backfired on him. We're going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video. And if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way. And it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we can get into Donald Trump's freakout, I want to start with the two clips that have clearly set him off the most. And it starts with Rand Paul on Fox right here.
Talk about things where some of your GOP colleagues there in the Senate are worried about too many cuts to specific programs. They're worried about impact on Medicaid. They're worried about SNAP. And really this idea that if you add work requirements or make it tougher to access those assistance programs, millions of people could be thrown off of health insurance. They could lose their access to food and medical coverage and insurance. So as a physician yourself, where do you stand on those arguments?
Well, see, on the one hand, you can offer people free stuff. You can say, I'll give you free health care. And people are, oh, thank you for free health care. But what you don't tell them is we're borrowing the money from China to pay for your health care. So we run a deficit, $2 trillion, which leads to inflation, which leads to rising prices, which squeezes you on the other side. So the bottom line is there is no free lunch. You can offer people free stuff, but if you're borrowing money to do it, you end up punishing them with inflation.
I'm sure it just has to sting so much more for Donald Trump to hear his lies called out on his own propaganda outlet by Rand Paul. I'm sure that just makes it so much more difficult that he's taking to Fox to do so. And I'm glad he is. I'm glad he is speaking to an audience that clearly doesn't understand that Donald Trump's tariffs are a direct tax on them, that his big, beautiful bill is not beautiful at all because it is the most massive transfer of wealth we have ever seen from the working poor to the richest 0.0001% of Americans. The people who, by the way, have the most influence over Donald Trump. You see how that cycle kind of repeats? Maybe if we could get that through the brain of the Fox viewer, America would look a little different, certainly better, maybe. But Rand Paul is, I don't want to say doing the work, because I can't give him too much credit, but clearly continuing to hammer home the message. And I think it was this clip right here that really led to this Trump freakout.
You're opposed to what Mr. Trump is doing. Tell us why. Tell us what you're thinking.
Well, you know, I'm kind of old-fashioned, Larry. I don't like taxes, and I don't want more of them. I also think that if you tax something, you get less of it. And I don't want less trade. I want more trade. There's a fundamental argument we have to have in this country. Is trade good or bad? The president and his counselors seem to think that in trade, someone gets ripped off. The truth of the matter is this, that all trade is mutually beneficial, and really the U.S. doesn't trade with China. You trade with Walmart. So when I go to Walmart, if I pay $10 for a shirt, I want that shirt, and they want my $10, and we both go away from the deal having succeeded. We mutually benefited. That's the only reason trade happens. And then if you add it all up and say, oh, China's ripping us off, it makes no sense. Trade deficits are not real accounting. It's a fake accounting, and it doesn't mean anything. What means something is, if you look at trade deficits in proportional to prosperity, the higher the trade deficits, the more prosperity. The lower the trade deficits, the less prosperity. We get a reduction in trade deficits when we go into a recession. We get an expansion of trade deficits when we're in a boom. So really nothing about a trade deficit gives any real useful instruction to the economy.
Well, actually, I don't know whether you're surprised or not, but I agree with you about trade deficits. Actually, I've been riffing about it on the show. That's, I think, a lousy benchmark.
Once again, I'm not going to give too much credit. Can't give too much credit to Rand Paul. But in this moment, I think we should just reflect on how spineless Republicans are to not be doing this themselves. We saw a court for a period of time strike down Donald Trump's tariffs because they're unlawful. It's a tax coming out of the executive for no actual reason. We're not at war. There is no threat. Donald Trump does not have the power to be taxing Americans directly, which is what he's doing with his tariffs. The court knows that. Republicans in the House and Senate should know that. And they do. And I feel it. And they're worried about it. It's why they're so afraid to speak out. But what Donald Trump just did, the meltdown that he just had, might actually change their mind. And it's actually starting to have an effect. We can see why in this crazy article. Never forgive him. Trump unleashes on GOP senator threatening his bill. Donald Trump on Saturday targeted a fellow Republican, Senator Rand Paul, in an online rant. The president took to his own social media site, Truth Social, over the weekend to make a bulleted post that combined several apparent announcements, including the S&P just hit an all-time high. Another announcement singled out Paul. If Senator Rand Paul votes against our great big beautiful bill, he is voting for, along with the radical Democrats, a 68% tax increase and, perhaps even more importantly, a first-time ever default on the U.S. debt. Trump wrote, Rand will be playing right into the hands of the Democrats, and the great people of Kentucky will never forgive him. Trump claimed, the growth we are all experiencing, plus some cost-cutting later, will solve all problems. He concluded, America will be greater than ever before. This notion that Donald Trump's budget will see problems with spending resolved later has led senators like Lindsey Graham to respond, dumping cold water on Donald Trump's budget. While the White House and House Republicans celebrated passing Donald Trump's big beautiful spending bill by a one-vote margin, caucus members in the Senate remained unimpressed. Speaking with CNN later that day, Senator Lindsey Graham shot down some of the cuts as not real, arguing that the House had done nothing to actually bring down federal spending. So in parading around cuts in a bill that aren't actually going to come to fruition, Donald Trump has only pointed out and further angered Republican senators who see this as the sham that it is. There's nothing big and beautiful in Donald Trump's bill unless you're a billionaire. That's about it. It is only Republicans who are totally willing to fall in line, which is a lot of them, who are happy to vote for Donald Trump's cut to Medicaid, Donald Trump's attack on working class people. Clearly, one senator from Iowa and Joni Ernst is especially happy about this bill, and the idea that we're all going to die is something that she's really celebrating, and that's backfired just about as badly as Donald Trump's post. And Chris Hayes got into that on MSNBC right here.
Just to be clear, there's like 10 million plus American citizens that are going to be kicked off Medicaid, according to the CBO's own estimates, again, run by a Republican currently. Now, I suppose the best thing that can be said about that response from Joni Ernst, we're all going to die, is that it is, I suppose, a refreshingly honest articulation of what I would say is a kind of a core Republican ethos, at least when it comes to policymaking for the poor and vulnerable. It's an ethos we have seen time and time again, particularly remember during the COVID pandemic, you saw a fair amount of Republican members at the time saying, you know, we're all going to die. As you might expect, reception for the senator's answer has not been glowing. It immediately made headlines both locally in Iowa and across the nation. Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts tagged Ernst's words as the Republicans' new pitch for their bill, while Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota quipped, quote, I thought my job as senator was to try to keep my constituents alive. Having said all that, this is a 1,000-page bill. There's a lot more wildly destructive stuff that's hiding in there that's flying under the radar. We're going to cover some of it as this goes on. One example is a very, very small but dangerous provision that is meant to aid Donald Trump's assault on the federal judiciary, the only one of the three branches of government providing any semblance of oversight to his reckless and often illegal agenda. Now, the provision that the House Republicans put in the bill could allow him to skirt federal contempt orders, things that his Department of Justice has been flirting with basically day in, day out. This week, voters tried to make Republican Congressman Mike Flood of Nebraska answer for that.
I do not agree with that section that was added to that bill. This provision was unknown to me when I voted for the bill.
This morning, Senator Ernst was also made to answer for it.
As I'm sure you're aware, but apparently many of the representatives were not aware at the time, nestled within the 1,000 pages of this bill was a small clause which, for the first time in our nation's history, in fact, effectively prohibits the federal courts from enforcing contempt orders. So, ma'am, my question for you today is, will you pledge to us, our constituents who you serve, that you will not vote for this bill or any other bill that contains this poisonous provision?
Okay, and thank you for clarifying. So one thing that I will explain, because we have a lot of subject matter experts here in the room, is that the House has written one version of a bill. The Senate is taking up our own version of the bill. The two will be married together at some point. There is a rule called the Byrd Rule. Silence. So the Byrd Rule states that anything that goes into our package in the Senate, it can't be policy. It can't be policy. It has to be focused on mandatory spending. I don't know anything about that provision that talks about mandatory spending or revenues.
Now, I just got to say something real quick in that I think a little condescending lecture to our own constituents. The Byrd Rule is enforced by the Senate parliamentarian who the Senate Republican majority just completely overrode last week to take out California's electric car vehicle regulations. There's no reason to think they're going to listen to the parliamentarian this time. And you may have noticed the senator's answer was about process rather than the actual substance of the provision. There's been this debate, I think, in our political discourse, and I myself go back and forth, about basically how much democracy is some abstract principle in the U.S. constitutional order that people are like, yeah, or is it something that everyday real people actually care about and can rally behind? And here's the thing I want to leave you with. There are people who got up this morning at the crack of dawn in red Iowa, state with Republican representation, went for Trump, to go talk to their senator, doing everything they can as informed citizens because they do believe in this country's constitutional order and they are trying to protect it. And I think there are more of them than Republicans are betting on.
What is wrong with MAGA is a question that we ask every day. This is a new level of asking that question. What type of messaging is this? What if a Democrat had said that? What if AOC had said that? Well, we're changing up the way that we do healthcare because you're just eventually going to die. Fox would run it 24/7. They would start a new channel and leave the old Fox channel as just a running clip of that. Like, seriously, if Joni Ernst is going to say that we're just going to die, so I don't care about you, one, maybe you should get out of public service because you're clearly not serving the public. But two, Democrats, hammer it. Make shirts, make hats, hand them out. I don't know. This is insane. Let's jump on this. We're clearly gonna. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around at the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.